Good evening. Welcome to Fordham. My name is Magda Tedder. I'm the Schwidler Chair in Judaic Studies here at Fordham University and a co-director of the Fordham Center for Jewish Studies. And I'm really delighted to welcome you to our first evening in the four-part retrospective series of Menachem Daum films. To begin this series on the Holocaust Memorial Day is quite fitting. Menachem Daum was a son of Holocaust survivors, and many of you on the audience are also as well. The son of Moshe Yosef Daum and Fela Nussbaum Daum. Although they survived, they each lost numerous members of their families, including their spouses and children. Like many survivors, they met each other in a DP camp in Germany, where they soon married and had a child, Menachem. The family arrived in the US in 1951. At first, they lived in Schenectady, and then, because of the lack of an Orthodox Jewish community there, they moved to Brooklyn. To have this series at Fordham is also quite fitting. Menachem Daum was a Fordham alum with a PhD in educational psychology from Fordham University's Graduate School of Education. One of the questions he explored in it was the relationship between chronological age and the alternative measures of age identification, and he focused on gerontology. But it was Menachem Daum's family history that turned him into the filmmaker we are celebrating in this retrospective. The Holocaust and survival and the moral and existential questions it left for us to grapple with are a through line that weaves through Menachem's works. And some of the similar moral issues are unfolding today before our eyes. eyes. This film series is part of our theme on disagreement in Jewish history, which we created this year in response to today's sharp polarization and distressingly intense animosities. We are facing a world in which it is not only increasingly difficult to pursue disagreement and mutual engagement and exploration of complex issues, but, as the news we're witnessing, a world of escalating violence. As another filmmaker in his film from 1948, Leo Hurwitz, put it, at the beginning was a word, the end rubble. The ethos of disagreement has been a long-standing feature of Jewish culture, from the Talmudic exaltation of dispute for the sake of heaven to Yiddish literature. One of the most profound pieces of modern literature, the Chaim Grades story, My Quarrel with Hirsch Reisner, is a dispute between friends centering around the weightiest existential questions in the post-Holocaust era, perhaps similar to those Menachem heard at home as a child and those that he himself would ask. Menachem Daum once said, "I believe in the importance of self-criticism for all communities, Jewish, non-Jewish, Islamic, Christian. We do ourselves a disservice when we can see faults in others, but not see our own shortcomings. We should heed this piece of wisdom. It is hard, it hurts." His films then grapple with questions of concern within the Jewish community, especially the community in which he lived, but they also engage with critical topics that connect Jewish and non-Jewish society, Polish-Jewish relations, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Menachem was aware that disagreements can be both generative, like the rabbinic debates, and destructive. His films teach us how to wrestle with difficult questions without falling into a destructive trap. His parents named him Menachem. The name comes from the Hebrew root nacham, which conveys notions of sorrow, repentance, but also comfort and consolation. The noun nocham means sorrow and repentance. Nichum and nechama mean comfort or compassion. And tanchum means consolation. Menachem then means a consoler, one who brings comfort, a name that Menachem Daum would live up to. Well, in his films, he explored sensitive and often quite touchy and controversial questions. He did so with empathy, pursuing the ultimate goal of trying to make the world a better place. His films simultaneously challenge and comfort their viewers. Today we're starting with the second film that he made, A Life Apart, Hasidim in America. The first one was in care of, that was made in response to his to the care of his mother, who had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That film was nominated for an Emmy. After the film, we will have an opportunity to discuss discuss it with the filmmaker and longtime collaborator, with Menachem Oren Rudavsky, Menachem's wife, Mrs. Rivka Daum, and the film associate producer Marty Dernbaum, Professor Ayala Fader, and Mr. Marcus Allison, who appears in the film. I want to mention that that Brooklyn College released the digital archive of over 60 hours of previously unavailable footage from this film, from this documentary, and we will share the link with you in an email. Before we watch the film, I want to express my gratitude to Oren Rudavsky for agreeing to this retrospective, and to many of our guests and guest speakers in particular, and members of the family and friends who are here tonight and who will be joining us for the next few weeks. I also want to express my gratitude to all of you who are joining us both in person, especially on this really brutally cold night, and those of you, so many of you online. And to so many of you who have for these years made our programs possible. It is your generosity that allows us to bring such films, book clubs, mini courses, exhibits, walking tours, and more to Fordham, to the New York community, but also globally. I know there is someone from New Zealand who is watching the program tonight. None of this would have materialized without the hard work of Shovan Verletza, who helps with all the logistics. So thank you, Shovan. And I really cannot not acknowledge and give my greatest words of gratitude to the media support from the Gebeli School of Business. They are really the top of the game. They are amazing, so thank you. Finally, I would like to invite you for the remaining films. So tonight we are watching A Life Apart. Then we are going to be watching Hiding and Seeking next week on February 3rd. Then on Monday, February 9, the Ruins of Lifta. And then we'll finish with an unfinished film, The Memory Keepers, on February 17th. So all of the films will be in this room. So now, without further ado, let's watch the film, and after the film, I'll introduce the panelists. Thank you so much. All right, so welcome back. So I want to now introduce the panelists with whom we'll discuss the film. There are index cards going around, so if you could take them, because the time is limited, we'll take the questions this way. In I guess alphabetical order, I'm going to introduce the panelists. If you want to come over to the take your chairs, whichever you want. So Mr. Marcus Allison is a native New Yorker with a lifelong perspective on the borough of Brooklyn. You've seen him in the film. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science and a law degree, and brings his analytical background to his current work as a substitute teacher in the New York City Department of Education, For this discussion, he will participate as a longtime Brooklynite, an educator, an individual before that on-film moment, providing a unique lens on a documentary that explored the intricate tapestry of New York City life. Mrs. Rivka Daum, a lifelong partner of Menachem Daum, and also she works in Petach, an organization founded in 1976 to provide Jewish and secular education for students with learning differences. Martin Dornbaum is an award-winning producer, writer, and the director of the Health Professions Education Center at Hunter College. With over 35 years of experience, he served as associate producer of all of Menachem Daum's films, a partnership sustained by decades of close collaboration. His own credits include The Power to Heal, Medicare, and the Civil Rights Revolution. As an honorary fellow of the American Academy of Nursing, Martin Dornbaum's work reflects a lifelong commitment to storytelling and moral inquiry. Ayala Fader is a professor of anthropology at Fordham University. She's the author of award-winning books, Mitzvah Girls, Bringing Up the Next Generation of Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn, which came out of Princeton University Press in 2009, and Hidden Heretics, Jewish Doubt in Digital Age, which came out also from Princeton in 2020. Her research has been supported by the National Science Foundation, National Endowment for the Humanities, back when they meant something. And she's the founding director of Fordham Center of Public Anthropology and a member of Fordham's Faculty in Jewish Studies. Oren Rudavsky is film director and producer. He received prestigious grants and fellowships, including the Guggenheim, the NEA, the NEH, again, back when they had meaning. His credits include PBS, American Masters documentary, Joseph Pulitzer, Voice of the People, and fiction feature The Treatment, starring Chris Eigenman, Ian Holm, and Femke Johnson, which was awarded the best film made in New York at the Tribeca Film Festival. Oren Rudavsky collaborated with Menachem Daum on all but one of his films. A Life Apart, Hasidim in America, which we just saw, was shortlisted for the Academy Award. Hiding and Seeking, which we'll see next week, was nominated for the Independent Spirit Award, and The Ruins of Lifta, which we'll see in 2 weeks. He is currently directing the unfinished film Memory Keepers, utilizing footage Menachem Daum shot for over 20 years in Poland, and is also developing a dramatic recreation of Hiding and Seeking. Oren Rudavsky's most recent film, which you may have heard about, Elie Wiesel, Soul on Fire, was an official selection of the Telluride International Film Festival and has been awarded the Audience Award at the 3 film festivals for Best Documentary, the Yad Vashem Award at Doc Aviv, and the Torchbearer Prize at the Miami Jewish Film Festival. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's get started. I have a lot of questions for all of you. So I have sort of 3 rounds. One about the making of the film and about Menachem, then about questions of access and then reactions and perspectives over the years. So I would like to start with you, Ayala. You have studied Hasidic and Haredi communities. Can you tell us more about the filmmaking by and about these communities, and especially documentary filmmaking, and the place Life Apart has in that context of production of documentaries about and by Hasidic community?
Sure. Thanks, Magda. It's such a pleasure to be here. I actually met Oren when I was a graduate student doing my research in Borough Park with Bubba ver Hasidim. And it's such a pleasure to see this again. It really is so evocative for me. But this was one of the first, was the first documentary about Hasidic Jews. And I remember watching it actually with a person. I was working with a woman in the Hasidic community. There was a community screening. And there's so much in that. It's so complex, and it touches on so many broader human issues. I think it really set the stage for what has become quite a thriving and really different documentary landscape in the community, in today's world. I would say that there's been kind of an explosion, both by people who have left the community, and a lot of you, I'm sure, have seen Unorthodox. But even before that, there were movies like Trembling Before God that really were critical of ultra-Orthodox and Orthodox life. There have been much more sensitive, more narrative films like Menachem. I'm sure many of you saw Shtisel. There's just been so much. So from people outside the community and inside the community, there have been from people who aren't really related, also very critical. But one of the most interesting things that I've seen is there's a film institute now for Haredi women in Israel, filmmakers, and they've started making films, mostly narrative, but some not. I just saw a short on the shidduch, on the matchmaking, that are really from a woman's perspective, and I think that's been a very interesting change going on. I think digital technology has really facilitated that.
Mm-hmm. So given how really path-breaking this film is, I want to ask Mrs. Daum about the decision to make, Menachem's decision to make the film, whether you remember how he broached the topic, how the idea came about.
He had been working for the Department for Aging for about 10, 15 years. He has a PhD from Fordham.
Yes.
And he was,
Is it on?
He had a paycheck every 2 weeks, good benefits, which I'm reaping now, TIA CREF, And then he comes home one day and he says, I can't take it anymore. That's it, I can't take it anymore. I said, what do you mean? He says, I can't be in an office. He had taken a course in film, and he did 2 documentaries for Department for the Aging, one on caregiving, and one was a lady who was going through Meniere's disease, and he got bitten by the bug. So I guess he focused on, so I said, how are we gonna live? Don't worry, don't worry. He actually did bar mitzvahs, weddings, whatever you asked. He worked very hard, but at the same time, he did not consider that his job. That was not his passion. He worked on the film. You have to know, his Hebrew name is Menachem. Menachem means consolation. He was one of the first war babies born in October 46. Both his parents had been married before the war, lost each of them a son, who had been named after their own parents, so they could not give a name. We spoke about names after their own parents, because my friend used to say, he's carrying the burden of 6 million Jews. And I think when Zeldy says we can't say no to our parents, that's what it was. We can't say, I could never say no to my parents. I mean, nowadays kids say, I want an e-bike, get an e-bike, otherwise you won't love me, that's it. But we did the opposite, because nowadays when you see like the fish man, whatever, Hasidim are not working in those kind of fields anymore. They could own the store, but the immigrants that are the illegal aliens are really working. They're in high tech, they're making money. The children don't see the parents working in stores like they did. We had compassion on our parents. My father-in-law took the train to Long Island City to work in a quilting factory. Never made any money. But everything was like for the children. They never took vacations. Where are you going for Passover? Which country are you going to for Passover? We're going to give you entertainment 24/7. You don't have to lift a finger. We used to see our parents doing Passover, turning over a kitchen, and it's crazy. So this is the difference between the Hasidim of today and the ones that came to America.
So Arthur Herzberg was wrong.
What?
Herzberg
he
was
always-
wrong.
No, my husband used to say he gave the Hasidim too much slack.
Uh-huh.
In retrospect, not now, but, you know, he viewed, it was shown 2 years ago, we digitized. I mean, it was still a good film, but it's different nowadays. Don't think this is what life, I still live on that street, so Bubba 45 and Bubba goes, Bubba, what you see today, there's two Bubbas. There's not one Bubba, there's two, and each of them are vast. What can I tell you? They're building buildings, they're taking over the neighborhood. They really, that's it. So it's not what you think it is. They're not in a shtetl. They're moving out of
Right.
Borough Park. They don't have housing. And they are going upstate. They're they are recreating their own communities, like Kiryas Yoel, because they feel the influence from the outside is really just there. I think you agree with me.
Yes.
And can I just follow up about your role in his filmmaking?
I just let him do whatever he wanted, right? Huh? More or less?
Yeah.
I would say that if Menachem had married anybody but Rivka, he would not have made these films. I think she, I would say, did everything. She irons his shirts, she makes his food, she makes the bed, she raises the children, and she says, okay, go ahead, make your film. So I think, and support them the whole way. So would that be accurate?
He was a good guy. When I got married, not the person who introduced us said, I cannot promise you money or anything, but I can promise you an interesting life. And that's what she fulfilled her terms of the agreement, what should I tell you. So he was definitely a fascinating person.
Oren, what about, tell us more about your collaboration. This was not was it the first film this was not the film Menachem made, but it's the first film you worked with Menachem, right?
Yes.
So how did it come about? How did the collaboration
well,
and
first
the
of
film
all,
come
I just want to take this opportunity, and I'm going to get emotional about it, so I apologize. But first of all, Magda, I really want to thank you for, Menachem died just a little over right around his yahrzeit, January 7th. So, we knew he was not well, and he was not supposed to die, but I wanted to thank you, Magda, for doing what we all wanted to do, which, there was a memorial in Poland before there was a real memorial for everybody here. And so I really want to thank you because for making this, honoring him in this way. And it's really wonderful. So your question was about how we came to do
together, and how did the film?
Yes. And I think, Ayala, you introduced us to Pearl Gluck, the woman who left the community and is a filmmaker in her own right now and professor. But to Carolyn and Mary Beth Zablotny, two women who Menachem, I don't know how he knew them, from the Department of Aging. They were making a film about Dorothy Day. They had seen my film, Spark Among the Ashes, about a boy who went to Poland for a bar mitzvah, and they introduced Menachem to that film, and we met, and Menachem had met, I believe, other producers beforehand, and Marty, who might know more about this, but Marty was Menachem's longtime friend and encourager and enabler to making films. But so we met, and as opposed to, I think Menachem said, well, other filmmakers were like, oh, the Hasidim, I, perhaps with rose-colored glasses, I had a beloved grandfather who was a Ger Hasid, and I was very romantically drawn to them and still am. And so we started a conversation. We come from different parts of the Jewish world, but I knew Menachem's part of the Jewish world from relatives of mine, and I was totally in love with the idea of making this film. And it was a process of, I said, if we make this film, we have to make it right, which means we need to get a grant from the now defunct, or whatever you call it, National Endowment for the Humanities, and we worked really hard on those proposals and got funded. So it was kind of miraculous, to be able to shoot on film and, shoot a lot of film and have a partnership. And it's not, we had certainly disagreements about how much criticism to have in the film and what that critique should be. And Menachem made the point, if it's a critique, I want it to be not about petty matters, but to be about big things like, I said, well, there has to be about the role of women in the community, and that was a significant one that we had very big fights about.
You just answered my question. I was going to ask about disagreements in the making of the film and the tensions and how they were solved.
Some yelling, definitely. I can say there was that. I hope. We worked, well, Menachem's office was in his basement, but no, we had actual offices. We could afford an actual office for that film, yeah.
Right. Martin, how did you come about, how did you get involved into being the associate producer on all of Menachem's films, but with this one in particular?
Well, I had worked with Manny on the first project that we did, and I'm glad you mentioned it actually, was a film on caregiving. And that was my entree in working with Manny in about 1987. We started that project, and it did a whole lot better than we had anticipated. Manny was very pleased with the outcome because he was taking care of his mom at that particular moment, and that film, we were very fortunate, and I was very fortunate, just to meet Manny. Manny, I was working at Hunter College, and I'm still there. Manny was working at the Brookdale Center on Aging, and that was part of Hunter College at the time. And I remember he actually had heard that I was a television producer. I did a lot of work on a whole bunch of different venues, TV commercials and independent films, cable television programs. I worked with Nickelodeon the first few seasons that they were on. And he had heard about me through Rick Moody, who was part of the Brookdale Center on Aging. And I remember Menachem coming down, and the day that he came down to talk to me, we were actually shooting something with the American Journal of Nursing, and it was a huge production. It was a multi-camera production. It involved actors and actresses, and I remember Manny walking in and saying, I heard about you. I'd like to talk to you about this project on caregiving that I wrote. He wrote a proposal, and I said, yeah, I'd very much like to talk to you, but we're in the middle of this expensive shoot, and he said, well, I'm a filmmaker too, and I said, oh, really? What are you working on? And Menachem said, well, tonight I'm shooting the Goldberger's wedding, and on Sunday I have a bris, So that was my entree into Menachem. And one of the things, we laugh about it today, but one of the things that, Manny was very good. He honed his skills making all of those movies, you know. He was able to become a really good, what we know as a ENG or an EFP filmmaker, an electronic field producer, or an electronic news gatherer. And these are people who go out in the morning, shoot everything you need, all the B-roll, the content, bring it back at night, edit it, and have a whole production done. And you know, I thought that was very good, and it was great for honing his skills. I just want to point out, I thought it was interesting hearing Oren in terms of how we came to Oren. I do actually remember how we found you. One day, Manny and I were talking about working with other filmmakers. There was one from Baltimore, there was a husband and wife team here in New York, and one from Washington. And I also remember, I'm glad you mentioned A Spark Among the Ashes. I wasn't quite sure how we ended up getting a copy of that film, but you're right, it was probably from the Zablotny sisters. But we watched the film, and we were so taken with the film and the artistry from the film. We said, oh, okay, that's... you know, and the fact that you were here in New York, it was like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. Let's.
No, Spark from the Ashes was really done for a Jewish organization, and he interviewed Holocaust survivors. I think.
We're talking about my film.
Oh, so it's not-
Don't confuse my film with his film.
Well,
No, that's something else.
well, up until that film, Manny and I had made films that were very content-rich. I mean, we had done a lot of health-related films. We had done In Care of Families and Their Elders, which actually ended up, one of the families we profiled on that film ended up on the cover of Newsweek magazine, and then it got actually nominated for an Emmy Award. But getting back to Oren for just a second, in Life Apart, you know, all those shots, all the seagulls and the sparkling waters and the leaves falling and all that twinkle, all of that was all Oren's artistry. And so that's what Oren brought to the collective. The other thing that is interesting about Oren is, Manny and I had worked on a film right after In Care of, we started working on a film on Shlomo Carlebach. I don't know if everybody is familiar. He's a Hasidic singer. Manny and I went to Poland with him and filmed his concert tours in 1989, I think it was. And, you know, we had worked so hard on this, you know, we had 16-hour days, and we were lugging equipment and tripods and lighting stuff and voltage regulators, and we just worked so hard on that film. And, you know, we came back and it struck me, one of the things, like, Manny and I would call ourselves guerrilla video men. We were out there working all day and all night, and one of the things that we laughed about with Oren was the fact that Oren's calm under pressure. He's a very calm individual, and we weren't used to that. So that, and the fact that I remember when we were shooting other things related to the Shlomo project. I don't know if you remember, we were shooting at the Symphony Space, and I guess you came up to shoot some extra B-roll for this project that we never actually finished. It was, papers and papers of, but one of the things that Oren also, I was astounded when Oren said, he said, can you send me the manual of the camera that I'm going to use? And it was like, this was the first person that ever actually asked. We've worked with like lots and lots of filmmakers. Nobody's ever asked us for the manual, you know? And there's a
For those of you who are too young to know, a manual is a paper book You know, now you just ask the computer, how do I do X, and it tells you.
Right, there's an expression, RDFM, which is read the frickin' manual, and Oren actually asked for one, and we were
I don't know that I actually read it, however.
So I want to, Mr. Allison, I want to, so you were in this moment. You even said, I'm going to talk about the being in the moment.
Yes.
So how did you end up in the moment in the film? What was meeting the crew? What do you call?
All right. Well, I was a Prospect Park employee. Specifically, I worked for the not-for-profit that managed Prospect Park Alliance, and I was hired to take water samples on the very lake that the gentlemen were around and praying around. One of my jobs was to take water samples at 1 foot below surface and 4 feet below surface. And there are different designated spots within the lake that I would do that. And also, while I was out there, pick up the garbage that might be floating on the water. So my day had ended, and I was walking home. I lived literally across the street from Prospect Park at the time. And I saw what was going on, and I thought, well, this is strange, and okay. And there were children there, and they also were praying and throwing bread into the water. And then, to my horror, they were throwing the plastic bags that the bread was contained in. And I was saying, oh my God, I cleaned this water body. So without thinking, I sort of approached the kids and said, hey, don't do that. And what was captured was essentially my response, what happened afterwards, which was a conversation with a gentleman who did say that he would speak with the children. But what I was taken aback by was the sort of the fear and the hesitance that the kids had of me, and it really bothered me. So I was really sort of flustered when I was approached. And they said, well, what happened? And they said, wait, let's get our cameras out and film it. And someone had a boom mic and the other had a camera, and we stood there and I was asked questions and I just answered them. And then I went home. And then, yeah,
and
the rest
then
is
what
history.
happened? And then you're famous.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, years later, I had forgotten about the whole thing, and a friend of mine, a colleague that I worked with at the New York Public Library, I had worked at the library before working for Prospect Park. She said, I heard you're in a movie, and and I thought, well, maybe she's thinking of the Cosby Show, and because I've been told I look a lot like, that guy, Malcolm Jamal Warner. And I said, no, I had totally forgotten. And then there was a review written by Mayor Ed Koch in the New York Post. And I said, oh my gosh. And I remembered in that moment that, yes, I had done this some years before. And and the rest is history. As Warhol said, everyone's famous for 15 minutes. And I guess that was my 15 minutes.
If it makes you feel any better, we have a second home right by a lake. And Menachem would walk once or twice a day around the lake with a grabber and a garbage bag.
Oh, wonderful.
And he would teach our grandchildren, and he would look at a McDonald's wrapper and say,
Yes.
well, really with a kosher potato chip, and said, look what the kids did. And I'd say, Menachem, there's a McDonald's wrapper also.
Yeah.
But he was very, he really had a grabber, and he would go around the lake and pick up all the garbage from the lake.
So you had an
Wonderful.
impact.
Yes, well,
No,
Yes.
he loved nature.
yes.
Well, I just have to say, when we came across Marcus Allison, name's right. First of all, we didn't get his name. We didn't get his name. So, it said Prospect Park employee in the first version, and I was like, oh my God, we forgot to ask him his name, because we interviewed a lot of people who, and so I don't remember how we finally made contact. I think you reached out to me at some point.
Yes. I think you were living in the West Village.
I was living the Upper West Side. You got the
Oh.
west part, yeah.
And I stopped by someone's apartment, and I must have put my name underneath the door or something like that, saying
Okay.
that I'm the person that was in the film, and then just over time, you connected with me.
Yeah, because we tried to contact Prospect Park, New York City, whatever. There was a African-American man.
Right. I had left the park at that point.
Yeah. Anyway, it was, as they say in Yiddish or Hebrew, bashert. It was meant fate
Yeah.
that we met you, and you were so amazingly on the money with everything you said. I think we used every word you said in that interview. So thank you for doing that.
I'm honored that I was a part of it. It stayed with me. Yeah.
So I want to shift to the second round now to sort of think about access and especially since the film is set up as a life apart. I mean, at some level, perhaps living in proximity to Black communities in Puerto Rico, that might help that enforce that idea of life apart. But how did you get access to these various spaces? Right, we have the upschiren, right? The cutting of the payas. We have the hair to make payas. We have the morning waking up the boy, very intimate place. So the female and male spaces. So how can you talk a little bit, I don't know who, about the various spaces, access that you had, and especially since, Oren, I was reading to prepare for this, you said at some point a few years ago that the access we got 25, 30 years ago, I don't think we would be allowed now. So could you?
Yeah, well, Rivka might have, or Ayala might have something to say about access now.
I still know most of the people.
Yeah.
In fact, Mr. Horowitz, his wife, is still alive, lives next door to my friend. She's not in bad health, mind is all there. I don't know them at all. I don't know how we got to them. The Gerer, I know. There was flack from that back when the girls' school scene. Afterwards, that was condemned. He has a letter from whatever, that they didn't mean to have it in the film. He said, but you gave permission, and he got flack from that. But I see a lot of the people there that I sort of know who they are. They still are. I don't think he knew everybody, but he approached people. Let's say the guy in the pizza store. He went by, we're in the neighborhood, or the fish store. You were there, he just went in, and that was it.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, first of all, Menachem was an observant Jew, and he spoke Yiddish, and in that Hasidic community, people speak Yiddish. The fishman, I remember, a lot of the people, as Rivka is saying, the family knew the teacher at the Beis Yaakov school, their kids went to that school.
No.
Yagdil Torah?
Oh, no, my boys went there for a time, but they did not stay in the Hasidic mode.
No, but Menachem also.
There's a synagogue in that school, and that's where we still are. Mm-hmm. There's a plaque on the wall with Menachem's name on it, next to his father's name.
And the funeral was literally at that school. But the fishman, for example, we were just cruising the neighborhood looking for things to film, and I don't know, there was something about him that just really, his energy just really, and when Menachem started talking to him, and we had the cameras, and he didn't say a word, he knew we were filming, and then obviously gave us his permission later, as it says in the film. If you need to help a Jew make a parnasa, a living, I'll do it for you. But, so that was that example. Ayala introduced us to Pearl. But many of the people Menachem knew personally, and as Menachem would say, he said, Oh, it was really good that you were not married at the time, because a lot of people who met you said, oh, we should be nice to this guy and maybe we can bring him closer to the community and he will introduce him somebody he could marry. No, I'm wrong. I got that wrong. I was already married to my wife, Judy, at that time. This was in our pre-research that people were very inviting to let us in, for that reason.
I would just add that I think today, in terms of access, people are still working with the relatives and huge extended families that they have. I just was talking to 2 filmmakers who are planning to make a film outside of in Tom's River, maybe, and they also have extended family from Israel, and so there's connections, and I think that's one way that access happens. But I think Haredim are much more media savvy these days. I don't know if you followed this, but there was recently a YouTube interview where somebody who was not Jewish went to Kiryas Yoel and started interviewing people.
Be careful,
Yes.
watch out. I didn't see it. But
Yes.
Be careful, watch out.
Like asking, are you on welfare and stuff like that, but within 24 hours, there was a Haredi-made parody of that, same thing that also circulated on YouTube, like making fun of the filmmaker for trying to shake down Haredim in Kiryas Yoel. So I think there's a lot more media savvy, and it goes both ways, which also speaks to the fact that I know that there was enclave culture and a lot in sociology, and Sam Heilman is talking about that, but I think in lots of ways that was kind of overstated, and that the reason Haredim have been, especially Hasidim, have been so successful in the United States is because they were so imbricated in so many of the institutional structures, and cultural exchange too, as long as it was carefully screened.
Just very briefly, I just want to say, there were places where we went into film, we had permission to film, and we were thrown out. And, for example, that beautiful scene where they're playing the violin during Sukkot, the Chol HaMoed, the in-between days, we were filming from outside, and I got a bunch of footage, and then somebody literally pulled me off a ladder from behind, and luckily the camera did not fall to the ground, and he was like, we were like, we have permission. He said, you don't have permission from me. Period. Goodbye.
Yeah, no, and it was clear, right, that the camera was something people were trying to hide, and this way. Okay, so now we are, almost 30 years that this film is out. So do you all remember when it first came out? What were the reactions where it was screened, and how, I don't know, maybe we'll just go around if whoever wants to speak. Yeah.
I can just tell you something. It made a splash, and people in our community heard about it, and we didn't have entertainment, sort of, and this was a kosher. It's like, I remember when the 10 Commandments came out, and my parents ran, because it was a Jewish film. They went to see Charlton Heston because it was about the giving of the 10 Commandments. When this film came out, forget about, I'm not talking even about released here, people were dying in our community to see it. And if you remember all those screenings, we did Chalamoy Sukkos in the schools. Not in the schools, people were lining up to pay $10 a ticket, $15 a ticket in Borough Park and in Queens. They were standing in line like out the door. There was no media. Now media is all over the place. You got films for everything. This was like one of the first breakthroughs. Remember that Shalamas, it was a mob scene. It was like they couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Oh.
My recollection of the release of the film was, I remember being outside the Walter Reed Theater with my wife Margaret, and I remember we were saying, who are all these Michiganese people coming out in the middle of January, standing in line to see this film? We were just shocked with the with the release of this and how many people actually came. I think the other thing that boosted the sales for the film was, my understanding was one of the Grand Rebbes banned the film. Is that, do you remember that?
I don't know.
Okay.
No comment.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I remember I saw it at 12th Street and 5th Avenue, I believe, and I dragged two of my friends to see it without telling them that I was in it. And of course, my motivation was vanity, but also because I wanted to see it with friends. So when they saw me on the big screen, they gasped, and we all had a great laugh about it. And after I said what I said, there were a number of people that went, ah, and off. But it was thrilling. It was a thrilling moment for me, yeah.
Yeah, the Walter Reed Theater, we were blessed to get a fantastic review by Janet Maslin, and the same day, Leonard Lopate had us on the radio, and Richard Pena, who ran the Film Society at Lincoln Center, there were no cell phones, so he certainly didn't call us up, but we got to the theater, and he was beside himself. He said, "We've never had a line outside the Walter Reed Theater that went all the way around the block to Broadway, and all our screenings were sold out, and then it moved to the Quad Cinema, which is where you saw it on 12th and 6th or something." Yeah, so it was, and the screenings in Borough Park were literally insane. I mean, I've never had anything like that. The mob.
There's a capacity here. We can't do it. Come back in an hour.
And then, we had multiple screenings. And what was interesting at one of those screenings is there were a few Hasidic women, there were Q&A afterwards, who said, "You weren't tough enough on us. There's things that you didn't put in there that you should have." So that was quite interesting.
Do you know which things?
Some things about women's roles, some things about economic stuff in the community or separation. But I can't quite remember, but there were several people, women, who were saying, you could have gone further there.
But I'm going to just say an opposite example. I went to one of those Borough Park screenings with a woman I was working with, and she was very suspicious that it was going to be an expose. And as she was leaving, she was like, wasn't so bad. So.
He didn't want, it wasn't like like unorthodox. He wasn't there to bash the community. He wanted to show.
No, it's with empathy. It's
Not more than empathy.
Yeah.
He loved this. He couldn't tear himself away from it. He
Yeah.
was like, he had appendage to his name, full of contradictions. That was one of his things, because this was part of his life. Yeah. This was something, it wasn't that he wanted to leave it. He was critical of it, very critical. He felt it could be improved, this was not the original goals, or whatever you want to say, whatever. But
it seems like it was a film that suddenly showed like a representation, right, and of the community to America. So I want to do the final question, and there are a couple of questions here from the audience. How do you each respond to the film 30 years later? Looking at it again and from having that perspective on the film. So, we can start. Why don't we start with you?
Well, I think that the community isn't as insular as it used to be. I happen to go on Eastern Parkway at least 4 times a week. I have cause to ride my bicycle going east to Brownsville. I play table tennis, and I go be on the Esplanade, and I oftentimes, I see the Hasidic folk walking, living their lives, and the younger kids. The other day, I saw these 2 girls, and they were making a TikTok video. Social media, for better or worse, I think has just made a number of the younger kids tech savvy, like any other kid. And it's something to see, because that's not something I saw 10 or 20 years ago. 10 or 20 years ago, I didn't even see Hasidic Jewish folk reading newspapers, much less books. So to see them make this huge leap to, I mean, I don't know what's being seen on their phones. I'm not looking over their shoulders, but I saw these two girls making a TikTok video, and it was like, oh my gosh. So I thought that was interesting.
Anybody else?
I just laughed. I really did, because, for instance, that scene, you see the difference, which I think Menachem, when he says the Rebbe said we're going to build schools, so you see Mr. Gold, he's wearing a blue stripe, and the truth is most Holocaust survivors after the war did not have direction. It was who you married, where you went. Even in you're going to see next week a film, Hiding and Seeking, where my father was hidden with two brothers. My father's the only Orthodox Jew from the two brothers. One went to Israel, one went to Chicago, who they married. I know I have cousins who've married out of the faith. The one in Israel is totally not Orthodox. My father was the only one that remained Orthodox because he married my mother. And we talk about cultures. My father was Polish, my mother was from the Carpathians. To them, it would be like Hasidic and Reform, almost, not quite. They had similar backgrounds. And my mother's family, they used to argue who had it worse, because my mother went to Auschwitz in 1944, and my father was hidden for 2.5 years. Who had it worse? So you see Mr. Gold with his wife, who's not wearing a head covering. They came to America. He's wearing a blue striped shirt. And he says they sent them to co-ed. I know co-ed, they schools their kids. I don't know about the other kids. I'm just talking about Chips Gold, whatever. You see the son went to YU, and I think the story is they're Bells. That the Belzer Rebbe, who really is in Israel, was in Europe, and Mr. Gold took his son to meet the Rebbe. And the son was in YU, Yeshiva University, and he became enamored. He came back. His wife actually is from Australia, Chips Gold. She's a personal trainer. I know who she is.
She works as a nurse.
What?
She works for the Women's Ambulance Corps, I think, too.
Okay, and her daughter is, what's her name? I forget. Anyways, but you see, the son is wearing the Hasidic garb. He's wearing a tie. Did you notice? Yes. His sons, on the other hand, are not wearing a tie. It's totally, the generations, in a way, have become more Hasidic. My father-in-law, when he came to America, was clean-shaven, did not have a shtreimel. He put one on when his daughter, maybe his first grandchild, got married. They were afraid to walk in the street, but they had in them that culture. My husband did not go, there was no Hasidic schools when he was growing up. Now, take your pick, wherever you want to go. There's, so you see how everything, as far as economics, people have this thing that everybody's on food stamps. And believe me, my mother would say, nobody's starving in America. They take advantage of the system. I won't say that they don't. We know our
You're going to be live streamed, by the way, saying this.
But I'm just saying that they've certainly bought into American culture.
Right.
Very much so. As far as dress, fashion, they're up to date. You think that, okay, it's modest, whatever. Yeah, they're wearing longer skirt, but it's top. I mean.
I got an image of this because I went to a store where they sell material, and I saw a lot of Hasidic women there. They buy very fashionable dresses at Bergdorf or wherever, and then they lengthen them with material.
Money nowadays.
Okay.
Okay. Another example of that is how wigs have changed. Those wigs in the film are, oh my, yes. And now there are these lace front wigs.
2000?
Yes, that looks so different. So it's true, the kinds of changes that including around leadership and attitudes to that, which I think have really changed.
Yeah, you pretty much answered these questions here, but I will ask one final question before we part. How has the rapid expansion and influence of Chabad changed the way Hasidim are viewed in America?
Just for those of you who don't know what Chabad is, which is Lubavitch Hasidim from Russian, and they used to say about Lubavitch, it's the, what did they say? Something like it's the closest thing to, does somebody know this? The Lubavitch are very different than any of the other Hasidic groups. They dress differently, and many American Jews, anybody who's been on a campus in the United States know those are the Jews who will welcome any Jews into Friday night meals. My kids were at the colleges they went to, they were welcome, whatever they were wearing, so they're very open to bringing Jews in. But what was my point with this? Chabad, your question was?
How has the expansion of Chabad influenced the way Hasidim are viewed in America?
Well, first of all, you're talking about, I grew up in Pittsburgh because my parents, when they came over, my mother had an aunt that came before the war. She signed the papers. There was actually a Chabad school in those days in 1952. Chabad has this mission to go out into the communities and bring Jews, not closer, a Jewish identity, to give them a Jewish identity. You could go anywhere in the world and get a kosher meal. Nepal, name Montana, just put you, because they're trained, the children, to go out, and whereas regular Hasidim, they want to stay insular. Mm-hmm. They're not really out to attract other people. The mission of Chabad is to bring Jews closer to Judaism, to have a Jewish identity, whereas regular, quote-unquote, Hasidim are not interested. They don't want outsiders. They don't want you from another sect. They would just want to be, they'll be nice and warm to you, they'll bring you in, fine, but they're not looking for it.
Yeah. So I know I said there was the last question, but they will not forgive me if I don't ask, why did Menachem choose Fordham? Choose Fordham.
Got into it. I'll tell you why. Well, first of all, he went,
To Fairfield.
now, in those days, now you could do it the same way. When we got married, he had 6 credits in Brooklyn College, okay? He was studying in yeshiva. But the system was Catholic colleges, he went to Fairfield, because Fairfield set up a master's program in education where they accepted the degree from the seminarians as a BA of Jewish, not Jewish, whatever, and they offered the same thing to rabbinic schools. My brother went to one in Baltimore, Loyola. So you cut out the BA, got a transcript from yeshiva, bachelor's of Jewish something, Hebraic studies, and you went straight, and it was an all-male college in those days. They would travel up to Fairfield, Connecticut twice a year, because you had to make a living, so you get a BA, a master's. A lot of people then were going into the public school system, making out very well. I don't know what he thought he was going to do. He ended up, actually his first job was for the Newark Guild for the Blind in Newark, was a Catholic. He beat out, I don't know, 300. And I think when he started working in the Department for the Aging, he was interested in going for a doctorate, and Fordham accepted his, I guess he found out about it, whatever. And that's how he ended up in Fordham. But he did go to a Catholic. You see, the Jews at that time preferred to go to a Catholic male college than to go out to the University of Pennsylvania or something like that. This was the part of not a Hasidic, but I'm just saying, it was a shortcut to getting an education, to getting a job, providing for your family. That was the way to go.
Just
you.
little subnote to that, which is interesting. So if a Hasidic kid had a problem and mental health issue, the community would prefer that he go to a non-Jewish therapist than to a Jewish one where he or she would see another way of living as a Jew, which would not be, to be avoided.
So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, Marcus Allison, Marty Birnbaum, Ayala, and everybody. And thank you for staying for so long. And we hope to see you next week for Hiding and Seeking.
And if you haven't had enough Jewish media for the evening, my film, Elie Wiesel, Soul on Fire, is on tonight at 9 p.m. on PBS. Thank you so much.